might look at it as a friend. To me, it's been a beast.
If you walked away from Metallica, I'm not sure that it would surprise me.
I actually said, I think this is really fucking lame. Weak. That you cannot get together. Us. Look, the biggest heavy band of all time. And things we've been through and decisions we've made about squillions of dollars and squillions of people. And this, we can't get over this.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of Why We Love This Band on Renegade Jukebox, where we discuss bands we both love and are formative to our tastes. And we can discuss things like the number of times we saw these bands live, memories of their music, and just how much we enjoy albums by these bands.
And today, guys, this one is going to be substantially different, and we're going to be showing our age clearly because I brought this up to Mike after seeing Rock and Metal Fans Struggles Instagram page about how they do this podcast called Nice Shirt, Name 3 Songs, something along those lines. And they were doing an episode of Some Kind of Monster, the Metallica documentary. And the way they were doing it, I thought was absolutely genius, was to watch it before, because it was being taken off of Netflix. Watch it on Netflix before it gets removed and then go straight into recording it. And I thought that is a genius way to do a podcast on this. So I brought it up to Mike. How about we do this for the 20th anniversary of Some Kind of Monster and have the episode drop on the 20th anniversary of the documentary coming out? Because honestly, I just thought about it a few months ago, trying to describe it to my manager, this documentary, and I kind of just went, I could make an argument this is a good crash course in Metallica's history up to that point. I'd make that argument.
I would too. And just to be clear, this isn't my first time seeing the documentary. I own it on Blu-ray, and it used to be on VH1 like several different times back when they had just like huge weekend marathons of these like rock documentaries.
Oh, that was Much Music here in Canada. They would show S&M on repeat, sometimes to my family's annoyance, because they would be like, that's all Much Music is showing is the Metallica symphony stuff. So I hear where you're coming from, man.
That is kind of going back to what you said. This movie, I mean, obviously it was made to kind of go along with the recording of their album, Saint Anger.
Their 8th Notorious album, Saint Anger, that is.
Yeah. So we'll get more into the meat of what the movie's about. But I think just to paint this in broad strokes, the best thing about this movie is that you're meeting the band as people.
Yeah, and that's kind of how we decided ultimately to make it a Why We Love This Band, to be honest, is because we were even floating around the idea of like covering every album individually or doing an episode on the band. So I guess to kind of like the first 5 minutes, I'm just going to cut to some of the meat of the documentary, because like the first 5 minutes just gives you the basic cliff notes. We feel like going into depth because we can, because, well, just enjoy your free podcast, people. So my thing that me and Mike discussed was, I don't think we can do the first 5 albums any justice, because I feel like they have been discussed to death. It's kind of like discussing the original Star Wars trilogy or the original John Carpenter Halloween and then going into the other stuff, because it's just like, what can you say that hasn't already been said by a million other metal sites or a bunch of other movie sites in the case of Star Wars and Halloween? I just was like, how about we just talk about how great these records are, just because the documentary straight from the first 5 minutes is just like, Metallica is one of the biggest bands in metal, sold, in the words of Jason Newsted, squillions upon squillions of albums and squillions upon squillions of dollars. So Mike, how do you want to start? Do you want to just go Kill 'Em All 2 Black Album, or just like hop around as you please?
I think it's better if we just kind of hop around as we please, because even my own personal journey with Metallica didn't start with the Canon 5. I actually, this is a real deep cut. The literally the first time I ever heard Metallica was, I can't even remember which video game it was. It was one of like the Hot Wheels racing games for the PlayStation. In the opening, they have Fuel. And that was the first time that I heard Metallica.
For me, I can't exactly pinpoint it. I can say when I went out of my way to listen to them for the first time. But like, I swear, in the wild and with, growing up with much music on constantly in our house, it was, I swear I heard Enter Sandman a bunch in the wild growing up as a kid, more than likely. All of the stuff from Load, Reload, Garage Inc. was getting played on Much Music at the time because that was the most recent output from them. The aforementioned S&M being on repeat. The first time I'm going to say I went out of my way to discover them was probably around when Guitar Hero 3 came out, because I'm part of the Guitar Hero generation. And it was some YouTube video. I was really suckered into console war drama at the time. So, just looking up stuff about video games and, trying to figure out, hey, when's this video game coming out so we can try to go rent it? Because that was a thing back in the day where you could rent video games. And somebody put together a compilation, and I thought, hey, this song sounds pretty cool. It starts off with this machine gun fire. It starts out like, oh my God, this last 3 minutes is kicking my, you're obviously knowing I'm talking about One. And I didn't even know it was a Metallica song. I was like, what is this song that's not getting credit? I can't stop listening to it. And then later that summer, I had found out that Death Magnetic was coming out, and it was going to sound more like the first 5 albums. And I went back and did my homework on, hey, this is Kill 'Em All. This is Ride the Lightning. This is Master of Puppets was the first album I bought with my own money when I was I didn't have an allowance as a kid. So the first time I ever got money, whenever we went out of town and I was given some money to go buy something, I managed to get my hands on Master of Puppets for only I want to say maybe $6 or $8 at the time.
That's a steal.
This was back when, I don't know if this was a thing in the US, but we had Future Shop competing with Best Buy, and Future Shop was the better store because they had better selections on movies and albums and everything. So we would hit both, but to be honest, Future Shop was just the better store. But no, I managed to get my hands on Master of Puppets. And then slowly throughout the rest of 2008, I'd just be, picking up the rest of their catalog up to Death Magnetic. So, just to kind of, I guess, hop into each album, as amazing of a debut as Kill 'Em All is, it lays the foundation for what's going to come next. It obviously establishes your 4 core talents: James Hetfield, Lars Ulrich, Kirk Hammett, and of course, Cliff Burton, RIP. So, as amazing as Kill 'Em All is, I feel like Ride the Lightning just goes to that next level for them.
Yeah, I would agree. Kill 'Em All is a great, like you said, foundation point. But in my opinion, Metallica didn't really begin until Ride the Lightning.
Yeah, and this is where we're going to just bring up from the get-go, because everybody loves to point this out. At what point did Metallica sell out? Jason will give you the very obvious, oh yeah, we sell out. We sell out the arena every night.
And he's right.
Oh, 100%. The sellout accusations go back to Ride the Lightning just because Fade to Black exists.
Yeah. The problem I have with the erroneous label of sellout is it's usually never true from the band's perspective. It's only from the outside looking in.
Well, for me, my thing with a lot of, I'm just going to say, for lack of a better phrase, the anti-Metallica crowd, the crowd that just loves to bitch about everything that they've ever done, like they've never done anything good to begin with. It kind of feels like the Star Wars fan base almost, where you could almost just say Star Wars was ruined back in 1977 when the original movie was released. I mean, it's gotten kind of that ridiculous to the point where, you know, and we will eventually bring this up because it does kind of come up in the documentary. The Dave Mustaine fanboys piss me off, man. Like at this point, just Dave Mustaine fanboys for real. He's written The Godfather, the Bible, Lord of the Rings. He's written every piece of great literature, great music, every great film, all written by Dave Mustaine, and he's never been given the credit.
Which fan base do you think is worse, Dave heads or Snyder stands?
Dave Mustaine has better music, though. So I can at least justify, okay, you have Rust in Peace, you have United Abominations. As overplayed as Sweating Bullets and Symphony of Destruction are, I would even take how overplayed some Black Album songs are over how overplayed Symphony of Destruction gets played to death, to be honest. But
Same.
Yeah, I'm going to have to back Mustaine up because at least he has the quality catalog, even if you get shit like Risk and Super Collider and Dystopia. But no, like, and here, my thing with Mustaine too is that he's always been given credit. Like, he's credited on Kill 'Em All. He's credited for the songs he contributed to Ride the Lightning that were demoed when he was still in the fucking band. So I just see it as Dave Mustaine just continuing to bitch and find reasons to bitch about Metallica. He truly is metal's very bitter ex-girlfriend.
That is a very accurate statement. And we will get to Dave's brief section in the movie, but I also recall a couple even deleted scenes with more Dave coverage.
Oh, there's tons of deleted. Like most of the stuff that gets memed, like Lars screaming he quit the fucking band, that's a deleted scene. That's not in the movie. But, you know, getting back on the first 5 albums, like for me, Master of Puppets is always going to be my favorite album of all time. For me, that's what metal should be. Fast, intense, well played, melodic, but not letting up on the aggression. Even when you hit something like Sanitarium, it's a moodier and darker cut that I almost don't even want to call it a ballad. And then there's just so much variety on the record too. And I guess this is where, you know, we kind of pick it up with the crash course in Metallica's history. Unfortunately, in September of 1986, after the album comes out, Cliff Burton dies in a bus accident, which if Kirk and Cliff had swapped bunks, their places would have been swapped and Kirk wouldn't be here. So like the amount of, oh my God, what if Cliff was still alive and still here today? Because I mean, even Jason has said in interviews that Cliff Burton is basically the Jimi Hendrix of bass.
That is accurate. And to say that Cliff Burton's passing had an effect on the band would be like the most understated thing you could ever say about anything, really.
And I'm going to bring this up because it will tie into the documentary. So like Cliff is gone for 2 weeks. Then they decide to start auditioning bass players. Like they don't even have time to just process it. They're just like, nope, let's make up these missed Aussie dates and just keep going. So obviously they bring in Jason Newsted from Flotsam and Jetsam fame, and 15 years, best possible choice. Because I think he is the glue that keeps this band together, even though he's been long gone from the band for the last 23 years.
I would have to agree with that too. Like, say what you will about his lack of presence on And Justice for All, he's still an important member of the band's story.
Yeah, absolutely. And here's the weird thing about how And Justice for All had the bass completely omitted from it, because when, like I said, I was telling my manager about this documentary, trying to explain everything, because like the most Metallica he was familiar with was the Black Album, and he loved the bass playing on it. I'm like, okay, so I'm going to burst your bubble right here. Lars wanted the album mixed so that way you could hear mostly James' vocals, the drumming, and just have the bass almost completely muted, aside from the odd clicks. And he was shocked. And then I explained the Garage Days Revisited EP that came out the year before to kind of introduce Jason. You could hear his bass parts all throughout that entire EP. I mean, Crash Course in Brain Surgery exists.
The Weight.
Yeah, exactly. It is one of those storied things in metal where how come the bass isn't audible on And Justice for All, to the point where there have been bootlegs called And Justice for Jason, which basically tries to go into the master as close as they can and try to turn Jason's bass parts up.
I've heard some of those remasters, and they're not bad.
That's the entire thing, is just the only credits Jason has been given any credit on any Metallica album has been Blackened off of Justice, My Friend of Misery off the Black Album, and Where the Wild Things Are off of Reload. So like his writing, like his attitude from that interview I sent you with Bees from Mosh Talks, the way he talked about recording the Garage Days Revisited EP was he would go in, lay his bass parts down, they'd be audible on the record. That's how the record would come out. He would go lay down his parts in a couple of weeks, and then the album would come out. That's how it would work in his Flotsam and Jetsam days. He did the same thing for And Justice for All, and then by the time the album comes out, everybody talks about how come there's no bass on it.
It's a weird thing, just the whole why is there no bass? Like, has there ever been an official reason other than just to screw them?
It's all been super speculative. I mean, Lars blames mixing. Everybody blames Lars. At this point, for all we know, Dave Mustaine probably snuck in and just muted the bass parts just to fuck with people. I mean, we could just say that's the answer, but I don't feel like making an entire podcast picking on Dave Mustaine just because I don't think it'd be that interesting.
Fair enough.
But we mentioned this during our Motley Crue series about Bob Rock coming into the picture for the Black Album. And my thing, I'm going to go back to the whole sellout discussion purely because you have to bring up, oh, Metallica died after Cliff died. And then Black Album, Metallica sold out after Black Album. It's like, make up your fucking minds where they sold out, people. I just find so much of it to be in such bad faith, where people are even going back to saying they hated And Justice for All when they first heard it. Now it's just retroactively being liked, or they just never liked it to begin with. I just find that argument to be so stupid.
Same. Either like pick a narrative or drop it altogether, because none of it has held water.
For me, I'm just going to say it. These first 5 Metallica albums are just pure front to back masterpieces. You can still listen to them today and they all still hold up perfectly. Like, you want to go through any of your favorite songs off of each of these records, dude?
Sure. Kill 'Em All is a bit harder because I don't come back to that one as often, but I'll say Whiplash, Seek and Destroy, Hit the Lights. Those are the ones I go back to the most. Ride the Lightning, it's the title track, it's Creeping Death, it's, Fade to Black, and For Whom the Bell Tolls. Master of Puppets, it's literally the entire record. I have to listen to that one start to finish.
Absolutely fair. I mean, for me, with Kill 'Em All, without just going every song for each record, for me, it's always been the stuff that I don't hear live nearly as much. Like Seek and Destroy, I'm always going to love hearing it studio or live. But I've only heard as many times as I've seen Metallica. In particular, I saw them in 2017 in Vancouver. The only time I have ever heard Whiplash live was that show. So that's a treat every time I hear it. Motor Breath, Jump in the Fire, Phantom Lord, No Remorse is one of my favorite Jim songs personally. Going into Ride the Lightning, though, for me, Master of Puppets is my personal favorite, but this is a very, very close second. As much as Hetfield hates Escape, I do really like that song, but I can also respect that it's the weakest track. We'll just put in very loose quotations.
Yeah, it's only the weakest because something has to be.
Yeah, and that's, I guess, just the testament to how good Ride the Lightning is. I mean, Fight Fire with Fire was one of the first songs I learned how to death growl to. And then the title track is incredible. Fade to Black is basically the beginning of them figuring out how to do ballads but make them heavy. Creeping Death is always a top tier Metallica cut. Instrumental wise, Call of Cthulhu, I would argue, is their first instrumental. Pulling Teeth is an instrumental, but I consider that more of a bass solo, if anything, and then a jam added to the last end of it. But Call of Cthulhu, amazing. Master of Puppets has my favorite Metallica song is Battery. It's always going to. It always will be. It's fast. It's heavy. It's energetic. It's a phenomenal way to start off a 10 out of 10 album. Title track, obviously, Sanitarium, Disposable Heroes, Orion. Like every song on this is just hit after hit after hit. And it's just the phenomenal musicianship front to back. And Justice for All, you didn't mention what your favorites were. What are your mainstays that you go back to the most?
So without saying one, because literally everyone goes back to that one, I would say Blackened, because that's a great opening track. Eye of the Beholder, honestly, is kind of underrated. And then the title track and Shortest Straw.
For me, it's always the back half. That's like, as much as I love Blackened, as much as I love the title track and Eye of the Beholder, Shortest Straw and Harvester of Sorrow, the older I get, those are the songs I start appreciating more and more for what's going on musically on the record. To Live Is to Die, I always bring up my best friend who passed away. Literally after he passed away, I took a walk to kind of collect myself that night after I found out it had happened. And then you get to that one part in the song where it just goes completely clean. That was that point in the song where I just was like, my best friend's gone. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. Like that, I can only imagine that's how the band felt writing about Cliff. And just me in my angry 13-year-old era of my life, Dyer's Eve in particular, just the lyrics, I could relate to it so much about, hating certain aspects about your parents and, just decisions that they made. Like the line, do as I say, not as I do, that also hits you like a ton of bricks when you hear it. And Mike, I'm going to say this about Black Album. My favorite songs are not even a lot of the singles on it.
I get that, because the deep cuts on that record are actually really amazing. I don't actually remember if Through the Never was a single.
No, it wasn't.
So we've got that. Kind of like what you said about Injustice for All, the back half of the Black Album is pretty stellar.
Oh, for me, the 1, 2, 3 hit of The God That Failed, My Friend of Misery, and Struggle Within, that's a perfect way to close out this is our definitive statement. We are the biggest band in metal. Deal with it. Like My Friend of Misery is one of those songs that I kind of feel like, again, the more I listen to it as I get older, it just grows with you. Like just me dealing with depression as an angry teenager, dealing with anxiety, feeling like it's you against the world. It's a song like that really kind of grows with you, I find. And then The God That Failed, obviously being about James Hetfield's mom and how she died due to her being a religious scientist, her having cancer, and then after passing away, he's just kind of like, well, like she prayed to God that she would be healed, but it's like, well, what did that ultimately do? What did that accomplish? Nothing. You should have gone to a fucking doctor.
So as you can see, there is a lot of tragedy in the lives of these. Well, I'll say at the very least, like the three members, Kirk, James, and Lars.
Well, Lars, ultimately, he's the only one I find that we don't know very much about Kirk's family, but like Lars is the only one that I find that had a good relationship with his dad. Because the thing you got to bear in mind with Hetfield, it's the usual, mainly raised by his mom. His dad left when he was young, that kind of a situation. And from what I understand, Hetfield was in a documentary eventually, I want to say in 2013 or 2014, about, kids who grow up without their dad. And he eventually did meet him. But from my understanding, he never gave like a very clear, definitive answer on why he left. That's how Hetfield really became the member I identified with the most, because I could relate to his story so much. So I guess with that in mind, we could go over just Metallica's live stuff. The only one we're really going to acknowledge mostly is S&M because it has original material on it. But Live Shit Binge and Purge has the Seattle show from '89. It has the Mexico show that always gets shown in documentaries about the band. It's just one amazing, huge. If you can get your hands on the huge box set with the VHS tapes in it, like I did, get that. But if you can't, you're not worse off with the DVD set either, because it also includes the CDs in it still.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever listened to or watched like the whole Binge and Purge, but I've seen clips, and yeah, it's just the most pure proof that Metallica rules the stage.
Basically. And I only know people who have seen the band live when Jason was still in the band. Like one of my managers at my last job, he got to see them on the Damaged Justice tour and said, best live show I've ever seen, period. And like, that was when they had the giant Lady Justice in the background blowing up during And Justice for All. That was when they were playing like medium to larger sized venues. One person I knew that I would always go, I was in a Big Brothers Big Sisters program. So I'd always go over to my friend's house and he'd tell me about the one time he got to see Metallica, and it was an Evening With show during the Black Album. And he said that was amazing. One of my coworkers at my current job also saw them during And Justice for All, also says it was the best show he ever saw. Like, if you can get your hands on Live Shit Binge and Purge in any capacity, you're doing good. But it's not until 1996 and 1997 we finally get the follow-up to the Black Album, which also we have to throw in the sellout category, the dual combo of Load and Reload. I've never asked really for your takes on this, Mike, but I am a Load and Reload defender.
Me too. Like when I was sort of still in my developing stage of being a Metallica fan. So just for context, the very first album I ever owned from the band was Saint Anger. We'll get more into that later, but that was Easter of 2004 when I got that record. And for some reason, my younger brother was also getting into Metallica, and he got And Justice for All. So that was kind of a weird sort of contrast of listening to those two records first and then eventually filling in the gaps. So like a year or two later is when I got my hands on the Black Album, Load and Reload, and then obviously Master of Puppets and so on and so forth. Load and Reload are, like you said, I'm defenders of those. As just like pure hard rock records, they're great.
Oh, they're both lofty experiences, but I'm going to say this. They clearly managed to accomplish what they needed to set out to do. I mean, again, it's a lot of material to sift through. Even Jason, in that interview with Bees from Mosh Stocks that I mentioned earlier, he says that he can barely even keep track of which songs are which. He's like, they kind of just blur together because it was so much material to sift through. Because you got to remember, it was intended to be just one double album, but because they weren't going to be able to meet the deadline in time, they just said, okay, let's put out Load this year, tour behind it. Once we're done touring in 97, let's go back to the studio, polish these songs off, and then release Reload the next year. I mean, the only way I can really talk about these albums is just going through, like, I think everybody is going to have their favorite songs on it, and they're going to be completely different from the next person's.
For example, outside of the singles, one track that really I've come back to the most is, I think it's on Reload, Bad Seed.
Oh, Bad Seed's a great tune. One of my favorites is, I actually really love Where the Wild Things Are. I love Fixer. My favorites on Load typically the longer ones, like Outlaw Torn and Bleeding Me are my two favorites off of that. But let's say even the more hard rock oriented singles like Ain't My Bitch, 2x4, King Nothing, Fuel, Devil's Dance, I know wasn't a single, but you might as well, because Devil's Dance is one of the few they still play live occasionally. But for me, if you ask any individual Metallica fan, there's going to be obviously the some that say there's no good songs on it and blah, fucking blah. But then you're going to have the people who are like, I went back to this years later after hating it, and I actually ended up really liking it.
And I honestly suggest that those who did like initially hate this to go back and revisit it.
I'm going to actually tell you something that I don't think I ever told you. So 11 years ago now, I did volunteer work with an older guy who was digging a lot of the metal that I'm into. He was more a Christian, so like certain stuff he wasn't going to be into, like Behemoth or Deicide, but like he appreciated a lot of like the techier, heavier stuff like Flesh God Apocalypse, Cattle Decapitation, Archspire. I talked to him about Metallica, and he said, you know what, man? Want to know what my favorite Metallica albums are? Load and Reload. Because he grew up during the era of like Zeppelin and Master of Reality era Sabbath and Motorhead. And that's how he appreciated those records.
That's actually really cool for someone who's into heavy, extreme stuff to also say, yeah, Load and Reload, that's the good shit.
Yeah. And the thing about Load and Reload too is that it's, on one hand, it's not that different from the Black Album, but also it felt like a genuine evolution out of, okay, Black Album, yeah, it's more melodic, but it's, you know, not that far off from like, say, Leper Messiah or For Whom the Bell Tolls, or if we want to get really loose and technical with it, maybe Eye of the Beholder. But like even Matt Heafy on a podcast around, I think when The Sin and the Sentence was coming out, he was saying how much he loves Load and Reload. And he went, well, the clean melodic stuff on Master of Puppets clearly gave way for the stuff on Load and Reload. So the fact that there's different perspective rather than just boo-hoo, the band sold out, blah, 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 blah. I like that there's more conversation being had and more objective discussion being had around those records.
One thing I want to say, I think S&M is what helped me to appreciate Load and Reload even more, because I listened to that first before I ever heard Load and Reload for the first time.
For me, there's different versions that I prefer from the out. Like for me, I know this isn't a Load and Reload track, but my personal favorite on disc 1, I believe, disc 1 has the symphonic version of Wolf and Man, and that's the one that I prefer. Like the Black Album version's great, don't get me wrong, but I think it's more full and alive, and I prefer Jason's. That's the thing that I gotta really praise about Jason is his backing vocals were fantastic. Like he's not growling, but he's not getting Hetfield's yes in as much. But like, it's a happy middle, I'm going to say.
I would call his backup vocals like, no, they're not like harsh, but they're dirty.
I've got a good use for this. Like Rob Flynn from Machine Head said, it's barking in key.
Yes.
So, yeah, S&M, it's an amazing live album. You would think that it's just Metallica's bigger than metal, biggest band on the planet, just doing something really excessive. Here's the thing. Yeah, it's excessive, but it works.
And it's not even like a one-time thing. They've established a relationship with Michael Kamen way back in the Black Album.
Yeah, because he does all the string section stuff on Nothing Else Matters. And Nothing Else Matters was a single off of S&M. People tend to forget that. We might as well do one little bit of backtracking to get Jason's last, I don't want to say full studio album in, because Garage Inc. is a covers album. But Garage Inc., I feel like it's also like Load and Reload in that you can have favorite songs off of each, and each individual person, they're going to have a different favorite amongst each other.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, my personal favorite on disc 1 is going to be the Merciful Fate medley. Like, that's how I discovered Merciful Fate for the first time, was hearing that medley.
Same.
And another work story. This was after I left my second major job at Home Depot, and I did have a back-end job for a time. And I was literally singing out loud at work one day the lyrics to the Merciful Fate medley, and I just got the weirdest looks of, here comes Lucifer's child. Da, da, da. Like, as soon as I said that, everybody was like, what the fuck is this guy doing? And I'm like, dude, I'm just trying to get work done. I'm just having a good time. But no, the Merciful Fate medley, it's incredible the way they managed to make an 11-minute track that's seamless and perfect and just feel full, but also a tribute to how great Merciful Fate are. The Astronomy cover is amazing too. But it's disc 2 where it's like all the B-sides and the rarities, like the Am I Evil cover, Bread Fan, all of the Motorhead covers are amazing. What are some of your favorites off of here?
Off of disc 2 or both?
Just in general.
Okay, in general, I grew up with having Whiskey in the Jar kind of on repeat just through rock radio, but my favorites are Die Die My Darling. Lover Man is actually pretty underrated. And then, of course, Merciful Fate and Astronomy. On disc 2, I would say their cover of Stone Cold Crazy. It's one of the best Queen covers of one of my favorite Queen songs. So that has to be one of them. So What? Bread Fan. And The Weight off of the Garage Days Revisited EP.
See, that just proves my point. Everybody's going to have their own individual favorites that they go back to the most. I'll tell this story too. My other friend who passed away last year, my core memory of one of his birthday parties we went to a bowling alley, like our main 5 group of friends of us. We went to a bowling alley for, I want to say, his 12th birthday, because I was a grade ahead of him. So we went to this bowling alley, and there was a music video karaoke machine that'd play the video on the screen. And for whatever reason, like, the only video from Death Magnetic they had was The Day That Never Comes. So I wanted to go pick other stuff. So like, I'd go pick one, but for whatever reason, I kept putting Whiskey in the Jar over and over again. And then years later, I was like, really, it's the most party-tastic Metallica video. It's just a bunch of these girls getting tanked, partying, making out with each other. It was like, that was just perfect for 13-year-old Nick to just play at a friend's birthday party. So, and that's the other thing I'm going to shout out too, is that Metallica do have a collection of all their music videos on DVD. It'd be great to see that get remastered, because everybody's remastering their videos lately, I find. But to be honest, it's probably just going to get put to YouTube anyways, because I don't know who's going to buy a DVD of music videos anymore, which sucks, because a lot of these are incredible.
Yeah, I will once in a while watch one of these music videos, just A, for a little bit of nostalgia, and B, because they did put a lot of effort into these videos, especially during the load reload era.
Oh, that's another thing too. Music videos. Metallica got accused of being selling out because they did music videos from the get-go. So it's like consistency, guys. Like when at any point they could have sold out. But no, with going back to your point about load and reload kind of having like, that's my thing, is that it has variety in its videos. On one hand, you can get really weird and conceptual with the Until It Sleeps video, or you can just have it be crazy like the Hero of the Day video, or it can be a straightforward video of a bunch of kings picking up crowns and all just swarming each other for the King Nothing video. Then you have the Fuel video, which is just about cars racing, which is awesome. Unforgiven 2, picking up the story from where we left off in the original Unforgiven. Instead, in Unforgiven, it's trying to forgive yourself for what the world has done to you. But then Unforgiven 2 is a relationship cut. It's about being in love. Kind of a perfect video for that. But for me, the one that aged the darkest is the Turn the Page video. Like, imagine 13-year-old Nick watching that and going like, this might be too much for me. Like, that'd be like if you had me watch Requiem for a Dream at that age. Like, it's dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to watch the Turn the Page video, guys, watch it. It's incredible storytelling, but also like it gets dark. Like it details the life of a stripper trying to take care of her kid, but also going into like prostitution as well. And it's a dark, dark video to watch. I mean, it even gets Ginger Lynn to be the main actor in the video. So like, for real, guys, watch the Turn the Page video. As great as it is, I gotta kind of issue it with the content warning because you will walk away from it feeling depressed.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess with all of this out of the way, we might as well get to like, I guess, the core of the documentary, because we got the stuff of why we love Metallica out of the way in general to establish things. So 2000 to 2001 is arguably the most tumultuous era of this band because there are two things: the Napster lawsuit, 1, and 2, Jason quitting the band.
Yeah, those are two huge things that could have, if they didn't take like drastic measures, those two things could have destroyed the band.
Yeah, so here's one of my many hot takes about Metallica that I'm always going to defend. And I am not going to be making any friends by saying this. And I have given Mike this warning. I'm about to defend Lars pursuing Napster.
This is actually the correct take.
So if you really think about it in hindsight, in the grand scheme of things, to establish kind of why the lawsuit happened for people who might not know, I Disappear was being worked on at like the beginning of the year 2000 for the Mission Impossible 2 soundtrack. And what wound up happening was somebody in the studio got an unmastered demo copy of it, leaked it to radio stations, and it wound up on Napster. So once Metallica got word of this, and Lars basically being the business head of the band was like, fuck these guys, they're releasing our music without our permission, we're going after them, we're going to sue them. And not only him, but Dr. Dre got involved. And the only one of the two that took the most shit was Lars, which I feel James brought this up in interviews that Dr. Dre caring about his monetary gain from this made sense because of the rap world and its affinity with money. I would say it's kind of unfair to be like, oh, I love Dr. Dre, but fuck Lars for suing Napster. And I'm just kind of sitting here going, that is an incredibly shitty take. If you're going to shit on one person, you got to shit on both of them for doing this.
I agree with that. The weird double standard when it comes to rock versus hip hop when you're talking about money is I've never really understood that existing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even some of the arguments I've heard counteracting what I just said, some people have told me, oh, well, Lars shouldn't have been, threatening to sue people, the names of the people who were downloading Metallica songs off Napster from a list. And it's just like, you do realize that this is him going, this could affect not just Metallica, but every band in metal. And this was not a popular take. It just, a lot of people were thinking that it's the biggest band in the world only caring about money. But here's the argument I'm going to make, even just looking at the Wikipedia page for the I Disappear single. The car that James Hetfield drives in the music video for that song, he auctioned it off on eBay, and that went towards a music charity for, music programs in schools. So really all they care about is money. You sure about that? I'm going to have to quote the meme, but you sure about that? You sure about that shit?
On a slightly sillier note, one thing I do remember from the whole Metallica versus Napster thing was the commercial where Lars comes out, busts through the door. It's like, hey, you can't download that illegally or something like that.
I think I know. Even this gets shown briefly in the documentary, is that one flash clip of the Beer Good Napster Bad clip. That's got to be some level of Metallica being online and self-aware about all of this and kind of having, I guess, a little bit of a sense of humor about it to kind of let themselves have the piss be taken out of them.
Which is good, to at least to some extent, letting yourselves laugh this off.
Yeah, exactly. And even I'll bring this up mainly when Jason ends up quitting the band. The whole Napster thing, I do think just in hindsight, it is something that needed to happen. But even Lars in that Playboy interview, once he gets asked about Napster, he mentions something along the lines of, there's going to be a million other companies that's similar to Napster that will pop up and let people take our music for free. And you got to think about this in hindsight. Really, the industry is destroyed. Nobody buys CDs anymore. Yeah, vinyl is up, but it's mostly for classic albums. I've talked to people who thought original pressings of a Fleetwood Mac album from 30, 40 years ago, that would be so expensive. But just because it is such a ubiquitous album, it's cheap. It's dirt cheap compared to other albums that you can get your hands on. So even that, I'm just kind of sitting back here going, man, I don't think there's really any winning with this, just because I don't think there ever is going to be a definitive answer to, is downloading music or is getting music for free going to be something that is ever seen as good for the artist and the industry. It's just such a can of worms discussion.
Yeah. And something that we kind of talked about off air is, at least with vinyl, there is a bit more of a novelty to it, where CDs are kind of becoming sort of an endangered species in terms of technology. For example, the laptop that I have now, which is a 2024 MacBook Pro, it just does not have a CD drive.
Mine either. My gaming PC does not have a disk drive in it either. And I would love to rip music so that way I don't have to just be like, hey, I bought the CD and the vinyl, but it doesn't have a download code. So I'm just going to torrent the fucker and just have it be on my phone anyways. I mean, that's what I have to do in a lot of cases. That's what I did with 72 Seasons. I bought the CD and the vinyl. Yeah, I had the download code, but I was like, well, I've already bought the album on vinyl twice. I got the indie retailer version and the one I got off of Amazon. I got the CD and the tape. I went to the in-theater premiere of the album. I think they'll be okay if I download a copy just so I can have it on my phone. But I guess we can tie that into Jason quitting, which I guess is really the core of Some Kind of Monster. I know it seems like we just beat it around the bush for the first chunk of this, but we kind of have to establish the groundwork that we're working with about the band. Mm-hmm. So one thing that isn't established in the documentary is Metallica are recording there was a DVD series called Classic Albums. There was one for Iron Maiden's Number of the Beast. I think there was a Deep Purple one, if I'm not mistaken, but there was obviously one for the Black Album. So Metallica go into the studio that they're recording the Black Album in. And this is around the time where Jason is recording he's self-funding his own project. He's doing his own thing, and it's going to be separate and not affect Metallica at all. It's called Echo Brain, and it's more of an alt-rocky kind of thing. So everybody in Metallica's management loves it. They think that they can take it and do something with it. Kirk loves it. Lars loves it. They want to take it and do something with it. James Hetfield is the outlier in all of this. He is like, I don't want this taking away any of the strength from Metallica. Like, is he going to, take it out on the road? Is he going to be selling merch? Is he, it's something I'm not involved in, so I got to shut it down. So immediately after that classic album series is recorded, basically Metallica's management just says, yeah, we're not going to be able to help you with that Echo Brain project. So I bring that up because September 27th is when they're recording it, and Hetfield approaches Newsted about, trying to shut the whole Echo Brain thing down. Guess what September 27th is?
Is that the day that he leaves?
It's the day that Cliff Burton died. Both bass players quit the same day as each other. Let that sink in. So, and I approach many things the way Jason thought, like that interview with Bees. I'm just going to go back to throughout this episode. He says that he took 3 months to really consider like all the ins and outs of him quitting the band. He mentions it to Kirk, and Kirk is like, yeah, dude, you better think about that before you jump the gun on any of this. Brings it up to Lars. Lars thinks he's joking. So
of course he does.
Really, it's just James that he's not approaching about quitting. So, and he's not going to ruin anybody's Christmas by bringing any of this up. So he decides to leave it until 2001. And that's when Jason quits the band. And that's when Metallica's management tries to get a guy by the name of Phil Towell. Remember this name. We're going to bring it up a lot in this. Jason gets introduced to Phil Towell. They're trying to make sure Jason stays in the band. Let's just say it did not go over well.
No, not even a little bit.
To cut into the documentary, really, Jason is the one who comes off the best in this, I would say. Like, I don't think James comes off bad. I don't think even Lars, I just don't give a shit that much about Lars selling off his paintings and making money off of it to bitch about it.
Yeah, I mean, Lars is just kind of doing his Lars thing. But I agree with what you said about Jason. He's like, his whole side of the story, like between this and the interview that you sent me, like, I totally understand where his head was at the time.
We are talking about a guy who was hazed for the first few years, but also wasn't allowed to write very much with the band anyways. Like, all of the bass lines that we know, like the King Nothing bass line that introduces the song, that was more just written on guitar for Jason to play and just kind of like tab out, basically. So like, the thing you got to bear in mind is that he's not being given the creative freedom he wants to express himself with. He goes somewhere else and invests his own money, does his own projects and everything. I'm going to bring this up to the Playboy interview. Jason does bring up James contributing songs to Danzig's debut, to a Corrosion of Conformity album, to the South Park movie, the part where Kenny's going to hell. That's James Hetfield. So Jason brings that up that, hey, James is allowed to go do stuff on the side here and there and like do features and everything. How come I'm getting chewed out for wanting to just go to a full-blown side project? And then James's argument is like, I'm not putting my names on these albums. I'm not, going out and selling merch for Danzig, which, okay, I guess I can understand. But at the same time, that's you doing a feature for Glenn Danzig from the Misfits. This is Jason just going, hey, this is my side thing. I'm going to play some smaller venues, but it's not going to affect Metallica's schedule. What's the big deal?
Yeah, no, that is genuinely a good question. What is the big deal? Like, Jason's not even the first person to like have multiple ongoing bands at once. Like, I think Corey Taylor is probably the most notable example.
Yeah, and like Jason even had a project with Devin Townsend at one point. He did a Sepultura feature on the album Against. Doing features is not something that's really new to the Metallica camp, but it's not something that happens very often among like many of the members at all. It's not really until Rob comes into the picture that, the band's allowed to express themselves outside of the band, really. So ultimately, just with Jason leaving, the band is just like, hey, what the fuck? Where did we go wrong? But they're also like, oh shit, we got to go record another album. So they include Phil in the writing process. And I want to bring up the directors before I forget. Mike, you know who Joe Berlinger and Bruce Sinofsky are, and I'm going to bring up their major credit.
I know Joe better than the other one because he did a couple documentaries about Ted Bundy.
And he did they basically both worked on the West Memphis 3 documentaries. Paradise Lost, the entire trilogy, has licensed Metallica songs in it. So like Metallica were like, yeah, we believe in your cause. Use our music in these documentaries. Go for it. But the main one I want to bring up is they worked on Blair Witch Project 2.
Ooh.
Yeah, so like this is their follow-up, and I don't think that they were in for the ride that they were in for, because the story goes, they're recording the album, and throughout like the first chunk of this movie, you get the vibe like, okay, they're willing to work with Phil Towell to try to work out their relationship issues, be more collaborative amongst each other. But then Hetfield and Ulrich get into a massive fucking fight, and it is awkward.
Is it the it sounds stock fight?
Yeah. Like there's some stories where it's like studio engineers walk into the room and they're like, I should not be here to see any of this. So like they get into that huge fight in the studio. James ends up walking out, and next thing you know, checking himself into rehab.
Yep.
So to give people a lot of the context behind all of this is that like there's a reason Metallica's nickname was Alcoholica. Like James Hetfield is a notorious alcoholic. He's as known for his down pick as he is for his drinking.
And a lot of the clips they show in this documentary from the Binge and Purge live footage, I think pretty much every single time they cut to that, he's got a solo cup in his hand.
Basically. And there's even a section where they take a 2-week break from recording the album, and Hetfield goes on this hunting trip to Russia, and all they have to drink is vodka. They don't have any water. They're just like, well, we've got nothing better to do for the next 2 weeks. So like, let's just go get drunk. And I think that all just kind of came to a head. And then Hetfield is like, you know what? I got a serious problem. I got to go check myself into rehab. And the MTV news clip, this is what I found interesting, was them going like, James Hetfield has checked himself into rehab for alcoholism and other undisclosed addictions. I was reading a little bit up on Reddit forums. There's nothing concrete. I only have like maybe 2 theories that kind of hold some water. So the first one for me is I think one of them could be porn. Because the thing you got to remember, in 2013, Hetfield did narrate a documentary about porn addiction. So I think, and this is an argument I heard get brought up on Culture Dumps, the podcast run by the Podcast 99 guys. I think that could hold some water just because it is a thing that's come up, but I don't know how frequent it has been brought up or anything.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like something that's common knowledge to even like casual Metallica fans.
Or the other theory that I did see float around that could hold some water, because the Binge and Purge footage shown during the recording of an unreleased song called Temptation, there is a lot of naked women in a lot of that footage. So there is a theory that James could have been cheating on his wife, and that along with the drinking, is why he probably got thrown out of the house and why he decided, like, I got a serious problem. I got to go address it. Band stuff goes on the back burner.
Something that we said off air is I would consider James Hetfield a good role model, not in spite of his demons, but because of them and how he worked through all of this.
Yeah, that's entirely my thing with Hetfield, is that you can tell he's a good guy. Ultimately, is that he just wants to be a good guy, make good music, but also be good to his family and, just address any issues that he might have. I mean, like, this is all these guys know how to do. You got to bear in mind, like, all of these musicians, this is all they know how to do. So, like, if it's going to affect their bottom line, if this is going to affect their living, if this is going to affect their family, it's got to be something that they got to address. And, like, kudos to Hetfield for being like, I got a problem, I'd better go address it. I mean, even though some people, mainly Todd in the Shadows, is just like, why is Hetfield like showing more of his personality? I always just took him as this raw, I'm the guy in Metallica. He has feelings now. Like, that's always been there, though.
Mm-hmm. Just listen to the lyrics. He wears his emotions right on his sleeves.
I mean, Bleeding Me Off of Load is literally about his alcoholism. God That Failed, it's about his issues with his mom. Even Mama Said Off of Load. Like, the more stuff into the 90s that you get, James is writing way more personal lyrics. So the idea of James penning a lot more personal lyrics and just kind of having to collaborate with the band more on that on a limited schedule, one part commendable, but one part, oh my God, this is insanely difficult because we're literally only working 4 hours a day on this album.
Yeah, that was like the most interesting part of the documentary, that for many reasons, the schedule just seemed, how the hell are they going to get any of this done?
Yeah, exactly. And there's even arguments like, why are you guys listening to this behind my back? And on one hand, it's like, okay, yeah, dude, they're just listening to the album and what you worked on throughout the day. But I also can kind of see Hetfield's point about, like, what if these guys are writing more stuff behind my back? Like, how am I supposed to contribute without, being there at all when I'm trying to get my own shit together?
I don't remember any specific dialogue. Like, who was it that mandated the 12 to 4? Was that something he came up with on his own accord, or?
I think it was part of his program with him being out of rehab and, him like either going to meetings or spending more time with his family. I think that was just more of a him thing. And that was the only time that they were allotted to work.
Okay.
That's the thing I got to establish for a lot of people, where I've heard this argument get brought up where it's like, oh, it's just supposed to be a movie about how hard they worked on this album. A lot of this movie, matter of fact, is not about them writing the album. A lot of it, like, yeah, it plays a little bit of a part in it, in that, Hetfield's trying to address his demons. Everybody in the band is contributing to the writing, but they're working with Bill Towell and everything. There's no explanation about the notorious snare drum. There's nothing about the drop C tuning. Really, the only major musical thing that gets addressed in it is the guitar solo stuff.
Yeah. And honestly, that's why this movie is as good as it is, because I'm a sucker for documentaries like this. But what makes this movie great is the people. Like, and the reason why we spent so much time in this podcast going over the backstory is because a lot of the stuff that they've been going through over, at the time, the first 20 years of their career has never really properly been addressed. And that's what Phil's goal was, working with the band.
And also, I'm going to bring this up because I don't think we did at all yet. This isn't the first band he's worked with. He actually tried to stop the Rage Against the Machine breakup from happening.
And look where that ended up.
So my big fan theory I'm going to roll with is that he realized, man, Rage Against the Machine broke up and I failed them. I'm not failing these guys. Maybe that's why Hetfield was so concerned about him joining the band, is that on the road, especially, it's just like they're just kind of going like, yeah, maybe he's just determined to save our asses.
Maybe.
One part I want to bring up, because I feel like we did jump ahead a little bit. I want to bring up the Dave Mustaine scene.
Yeah, let's talk about that because, again, speaking of issues that the band has just not really addressed.
So just to give everybody context, shortly before recording Kill 'Em All, on the way to go record the album in New York for Megaforce Records, Dave Mustaine wakes up in a hangover and he's kicked out of Metallica purely because he is starting fights. He's getting violent. He's just being an all-around douchebag to people. And the band is like, we're just not having it anymore. So Dave, you're out. They put him on a bus back to San Francisco. And they're just like, yeah, we're just going to hire Kirk to join the band, pull him from Exodus. Dave obviously decides to start Megadeth out of retaliation towards Metallica. So most of the scene between Dave and Lars is Dave holds Lars responsible for that decision. And like a lot of the times when Dave is shit talking Metallica in the press, that is, he's mainly talking about Lars.
Yeah, I could just feel the tension in that scene.
And the thing that I find kind of ironic is that Dave doesn't come across like a wuss bag. Like that was ultimately my introduction to Megadeth, was purely because finding out that he used to be in Metallica before Kill 'Em All was recorded, finding out about his own addictions that he was dealing with and addressing, finding out how much he had to deal with being the guy who used to be in Metallica and being it. And like, as much as I've antagonized Dave Mustaine over the years and made jokes about Metallica, as soon as I see Megadeth live again, I'm going to scream Metallica at the top of my lungs. Like, as much as I make jokes about that, I do feel really sorry for the guy. And it seems like he really went through a bunch of needless shit. But I also am of the mindset that, okay, dude, you came off generally pretty well and you came off well spoken in this documentary, but you're proceeding to shit talk it, saying you were misrepresented, saying that this was the final betrayal that Metallica ever made to you. But like, dude, every 10 years you fucking do this, where Metallica takes you out on tour during the Black Album, has you open for them. You try to repair the relationship then, and then you're back to shit talking them again. And then you meet James at Woodstock 99, take a photo with him, and then you're shit talking Metallica the next year again. And then the big four shows happen, and then a couple of years later, you're shit talking Metallica again. And it's like,
Rinse and repeat.
Just shut the fuck up and make your fucking peace with these guys already.
Seriously, like that whole song and dance, it gets old, and he's going to take his salt to the grave.
And then as soon as he's buried, there's going to be a mine discovered underneath it. So you know what? My entire attitude is that this all should have just been buried and done with the 30th anniversary gigs they did in 2011. Like they should have just said, you know what? We're bringing Dave up on stage. We're playing all, because during Four Horsemen, they always cut out the Sweet Home Alabama part because that was Dave's idea. It's like, okay, all the people making the argument that they're just profiting off of Dave's work, they cut that part out. So what the fuck? That argument doesn't hold any water.
Yeah.
I think it's just a bunch of, like, we are Metallica apologists at this rate, but I mean, the Dave Mustaine apologists, I also have to question, like, dude, just sometimes you just got to move on and keep your mouth shut. Follow what the sign on the door says in the movie. Keep your mouth shut at all times.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, Dave does honestly come off generally sympathetic, again, well-spoken. And, you know, it does kind of fill in some of the gaps that some people might not know about the band. I mean, that's how I got into Megadeth, was because, you know, knowing his history with Metallica and everything, I was like, okay, I want to go check these records out.
Yeah, I think this is a good introduction. Not like comprehensive or anything, but you understand who he was to Lars and James, you get sort of an idea of just how he felt being like excommunicated from the band. And that this scene happens after we learn about James going to rehab. It even packs like a certain kind of punch where it's like he's actually saying, and this is a really good point, I wish I had that instead of being thrown out on the street.
Yeah, exactly. I do want to hop back into the part in the studio about the guitar solo section. And I got to back Kirk up on this. Like, Kirk comes off in this documentary as the most chill one of the bunch. Like, he's the surfer guy. He's already the most sober one of the band at this point. And he brings up something like halfway through, I think it's when they're recording Sweet Amber, and he does a little like improv guitar solo section. They're already discussing behind the scenes, like, do we want to have something sound outdated or do we want to have something sound modern? And Kirk is just like, yeah, dude, if you don't include guitar solos on these songs, you're dating it to a movement going on in music right now, and you're just going to have it be dated to the year X.
They don't say it by name, but growing up around that time, they're talking about nu metal.
Oh, absolutely. There's even been discussion about Saint Anger being a nu metal album, and I don't agree with that because there's way too much tremolo picking going on in it.
Yeah, no, it's not nu metal, but it's not unreasonable to, if you're not like super into this genre, like, I understand why you think it's nu metal, especially if you look at the 2003 Summer Sanitarium lineup. Like, they're with Mudvayne, Deftones, Linkin Park shot live in Texas on this tour. I get to someone who's like not well versed in metal why you would think that this was a nu metal record. It's just not a nu metal record.
And like, even the argument about down tuning, like Arch Enemy were already recording in drop C anyway. But the thing that makes Arch Enemy melodic death metal is that it has Iron Maiden twin guitar melodies on top of growled vocals. So like, down tuning's always been a thing in metal. Like, even Carcass on those early records, they're playing in drop B, for fuck's sakes. So I don't see how Metallica drop tuning is them just trend chasing. This isn't a Motley Crue Generation Swine situation where it's like we're chasing a sound just to trying to sound like the kids. No, it's like they're genuinely trying to like modernize everything, but just sound aggressive. And I honestly kind of stopped taking notes after the guitar solo section, mostly just because a lot of people know the major story beats. Rob ends up joining the band. They're restored whole. They finish the album. It comes out. And that's just kind of the abridged version of the last chunk of the movie. Like, it is cool to see Rob auditioning and them like considering all, I'm going to say 4 or 5 of their options. Like, that was pretty cool to watch.
Yeah. If it wasn't Rob, who out of the people that they were looking at do you think might have, well,
I'm going to be honest, it should just be Rob, just because, like, as much as I did like the Manson albums pre-accusations, he's not Cliff or Jason. Pepper Keenan from Corrosion of Conformity, I associate more with guitar than I do bass, although you do see Hetfield wearing a down shirt at one point. I'm not as well-versed in Caius or The Cult. Eric Avery from Jane's Addiction, he's auditioning to join the band. I think even Charlie Klaus. No, it's Danny Lohner from Nine Inch Nails. My mistake. Danny Lohner from Nine Inch Nails is auditioning at one point. So I think Rob was the best possible choice to join the band.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And the things that Kirk Hammett says, I can't remember what song it was that Rob was playing. Like, Kirk said, like, nobody's played it like this since Cliff. That's when it clicked. Like, no, he was meant to be in this band.
Well, that's the thing I brought up to you, was when they were doing that whole fan day at their HQ, the bass player that they had doing Seek and Destroy, she was playing with her fingers. So that's how I
Elena
went. Yeah, that's how I just went. Metallica bass players, like as amazing as Jason was, as much as he brought to the band, Metallica bassists are mainly known for playing with their fingers rather than with a pick.
Yep.
So I guess just ultimately with that in mind, we might as well bring it up too, because this is time period related and there is footage from it, because this is how they introduce Rob to the world as a member of Metallica, is the MTV Icon footage. And like they even get a pretty nasty jab at Jason saying, oh, he lost his icon status when he quit the band. I was like, you assholes. I'm not even in the room, and this is 20 years later, and I'm just going like, that is a dick move.
That is.
But no, did you watch the MTV Icon thing back in the day when it aired? Like, I vaguely remember watching bits of it as a kid.
I don't think I watched it live, but recently, the former drummer of Sum 41.
I was going to bring that up eventually, Steve-O.
Yeah, Steve-O, he's doing videos just like, to be perfectly blunt, he's reliving the glory days. But one of the videos that he did was the Metallica medley that Sum 41 did.
And then we see our man of the hour, our red cap man of the hour, Fred Durst, for like 2 seconds. And then we see Head from Korn eventually. So MTV Icon, Metallica, the most new metal special of all.
2003 was a year.
That it was. Yeah, the MTV Icon thing, it was, the Metallica stuff is the best part. Sum 41 honestly probably had the best section of it.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest. Like they played Broom the Bell Tolls, Sandman, Master of Puppets. They played it all basically exactly like the record and nailed their parts. So, you know, that was pretty cool. Unfortunately, all the music is downhill from there. We get a bad Snoop Dogg rendition of Sad But True. The Avril Lavigne cover of Fuel is hilarious. Like, especially when you watch Stevie T's video of her doing that and he just does like a super high pitch. And he's just playing like super high up on the neck on the highest string. And it's like... Yeah, that's rough. Stained cover, Nothing Else Matters, and I guess it's bearable, but it's still Aaron Lewis being a whiny douchebag.
I honestly wish they just chose one band as a tribute and it just be Sum 41.
Well, that was the thing with MTV Icon, is that they would pick multiple bands to cover these songs. But you would think, given that they're relaunching Headbangers Ball later that year, you would think you would want to pick some of maybe the Metallica already are putting out an aggressive record like a month. So you would think you would want to get a more aggressive band to like cover their stuff, or like get one of their peers like Anthrax to do a Metallica. Because Anthrax with John Bush did an awesome Phantom Lord cover. You would think you would get them to maybe want to play that.
Yeah, there you go.
But... admittedly, though, I do like Korn's cover of One.
It's interesting. I respect that they made it their own.
But it does suck that they do cut out the best parts, though.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. And then, honestly, just in hindsight, with the Avril Lavigne cover of Fuel, the Snoop Dogg butchering of Sad But True, honestly, in hindsight, as not good as it is, the Biscuit version of Sanitarium doesn't look as bad in comparison to those two.
He got lucky.
Although Fred Durst screaming "Leave Me Alone" did give me what's his name flashbacks. Chris Crocker. Yeah, I'm dating myself with that reference. The joys of discovering YouTube in 2006. But no, like that part is pretty barf worthy. But no, at this point, documentary ends. Metallica's back. I guess to tie it all together, we haven't really discussed much of Saint Anger yet.
No. Before we recorded this podcast, we watched the movie. But before that, we listened to Saint Anger. I personally would recommend you watch the documentary first, then listen to the album, because even they say it towards the end of the documentary. This album is like, it's basically like a story in of itself. It's like a musical diary.
Yeah, and some people do make the argument maybe it is a diary that should have just been kept private and they should have taken, because the thing with Jason, he actually suggested the band just take a year off to go address whatever they need to. You know, Hetfield gets his alcoholism under control, deals with his family issues. Lars can go do his painting and stuff. Kirk can go surfing. Jason is already addicted to painkillers to deal with how heavy, like just from headbanging and giving 100% on stage and carrying all these heavy basses. He's already hooked on painkillers from his neck being mulch at this point. So he already suggested taking a year off rather than going into a therapy session, documenting this therapy session, recording the therapy session, and then putting both out to the public to deal with all of it. So my thing with Saint Anger is I think it's an album only Metallica could make, if you really think about it.
It's the album they needed to make.
Because otherwise, honestly, they probably would have broken up.
And nobody wants that. Not even the Metallica haters want Metallica broken up.
Although at the rate they talk, they probably do.
True.
But my thing with Saint Anger, I do agree with a lot of the criticisms of it. There is certain stuff I do think they should cut, like the last 35, that last chunk of Frantic, that last chunk of Purify. I do think that can go. The acoustic version of All Within My Hands is better.
Yes.
Letting Kirk not solo is one of the worst decisions you could have made with this record. The tin can snare drum. Here's my thing that I'm just kind of looking back in hindsight. And I sent you a Blabbermouth article, and the beginning of the movie already starts with a bunch of metal press guys going into the studio to listen to cuts off of Saint Anger. There was one Swedish journalist that said, this is the most brutal Metallica I've ever sounded. And this is like the most aggressive album a mainstream metal band could put out. And I just kind of feel like, did the hype around it get so big and then the anti-hype kind of took over? Or was it just hindsight, or people just going like, I'm just going to listen to what my friends have to say? Like, I don't know if it's a mix of all of them or not.
A fair question, because me being an impressionable fifth grader at the time when I heard the record, again, we're talking 2004, the year that I got the record, I wasn't as plugged into, the internet at that time. So I wasn't really tuned into the hatred that this album got. I mean, I've seen people say like, yeah, this album's not good. And obviously listening to their older stuff, yeah, there is a difference in quality, sure. But at the same time, I still hold a special place in my heart for this record because it grabbed me at such a young age.
I understand that. And I guess to kind of tie it, into a Star Wars analogy, is that it's kind of like when you and I were discussing the re-release of The Phantom Menace, where it's just like the album itself, and in that case, the movie itself, has been discussed to death so much that almost every opinion on it is the right opinion.
Exactly.
And I kind of can't help but feel like, yes, I understand it is the weakest Metallica record. In no way is it, gunning for Master of Puppets or And Justice for All for me. But is it the 0.8 out of 10 that Pitchfork.com is making it out to be? Is it really one of the biggest disasters in metal? No. Like, as flawed as Saint Anger is, I still think it's a worthy listen. I do still recommend people listen to it if you're going through the entire Metallica catalog. But I'm also one of those people who likes to run. I will be even doing this at their shows in August when I go see them. I will be wearing a Saint Anger shirt and joking around with people going, yeah, Saint Anger, best Metallica album. The snare's the best part. And, I can't wait to see James's reaction to me wearing Saint Anger shirts both nights.
I'm sure just because I have a sense of humor, they'll get a kick out of it.
I mean, they even say during live shows now, like there's footage of them getting booed for playing stuff off of it. And James is like, you guys will come around to it eventually. And then even in some other shows, he's just like, all right, this next song's off your favorite album.
So he knows.
And I've told you this once or twice before. When I went to go see their showing of both their Texas shows from last year, when Hetfield said this next song's off your favorite album, I'm just like, oh, Saint Anger. Yes. I just heard somebody in the crowd just go, I literally just said to myself, mission accomplished. I pissed somebody off. Awesome. But I guess getting back into some kind of monster, that's the main thing I have to make the argument for, is that it is a documentary genuinely worth watching if you're looking to either get into Metallica or like just get like a cursory glance at what they're like. Because like it has clips from basically chunks of their albums and their history. It is a good entryway, and it is a well-made movie.
Oh, for sure. Even if you don't really care about Metallica, but you're a fan of the directors who worked on this, it's a great look at the people involved in a group of icons. Like the members of Metallica, at the end of the day, are just people.
And it is kind of just one of those looks into that world where it's like, yeah, you could make the argument that it is just rich people arguing for 2 hours. But here's the thing. I have to make this argument because I just thought about it while watching this movie. If we didn't have some kind of monster, we wouldn't have Lamb of God's Philadelphia. And I would make the argument that Philadelphia is more uncomfortable because, yeah, James and Lars, they get into some pretty heated arguments in this, but never at one point, we don't get a fight like Randy having the shit beaten out of him while drunk by Mark Morton getting sick of Randy's shit on the tour bus. And Randy just calling everybody freaks left and right because he's tanked out of his mind. And John even is like, dude, drunk Randy is not fun to fucking be around. And we don't like your attitude.
Yeah, I'm thankful that no fists were thrown in this movie.
Yeah, like I'm going to make this argument. Some kind of monster walked so Philadelphia could run.
I won't disagree with that.
So I guess to kind of just bring this around, because obviously the big spoiler of this movie is, well, they didn't break up. So we might as well just include, I guess, little bits of our thoughts on the next 3 albums. Like, even though we did a podcast on 72 Seasons already, we might as well just include it because Death Magnetic was the first Metallica album I was around for the release of, like aware and excited for.
Yeah, and that came out the same year as Trivium's Shogun, which was a great year for that kind of metal.
Oh, 2008 is just what, along with 04, is probably one of the most formative years for metal for me. I mean, just getting into stuff like eventually that I would get into, that is like Lamb of God, Opeth, Machine Head, you know, Children of Bodom, Black Dahlia Murder, Slipknot. Like, it's that entire era. I miss it. And it feels like Metallica really were kind of on the pulse of it with Death Magnetic, just going like, let's go back to our older sound, but like kind of like take And Justice for All and the Black Album, smush them together. You get Death Magnetic.
Yeah, I would say Hardwired is that, but without the loudness war.
Yeah, because the thing with Death Magnetic is that Rick Rubin, he's very much not present for it. There's a reason why Corey from Slipknot always talks about how miserable working on Volume 3 was because they didn't really have a producer to work with. But the thing for Death Magnetic for me is that if you're going to listen to it, from what I'm aware, the versions on iTunes and on streaming have eliminated the loudness war issue.
A little bit.
I know that my vinyl copy, it sounds much better. Like, and my copy's from 2014.
And also there's the, I think it was the Guitar Hero Metallica versions that are
That
much
use, like,
better
the
mixed.
original masters. Yeah, that's like that. That's the thing with Death Magnetic is just that production issues aside, mostly in thanks to Rick Rubin, for fuck's sakes. That's the only thing that holds that album back. But the music side of things, Death Magnetic is fucking phenomenal. It has some of my personal favorite Metallica songs on it, like All Nightmare Long and The Judas Kiss.
I like Broken, Beaten, and Scarred and My Apocalypse.
Oh, My Apocalypse. That was the first song I actually heard before The Day That Never Comes. I think that should have, the way Slipknot released All Hope Is Gone as a first single, then Psychosocial. I think Metallica should have been like, let's put out My Apocalypse first and then Day That Never Comes.
I agree. That would have been a better reintroduction to this style.
Oh, exactly. That was the only bummer, though, is that this was the only Metallica album I had throughout high school. Like, no new music for 8 years.
That's a long time to go without a Metallica record.
Yeah, and I just kind of sat there waiting, like, every year going like, is a new album going to come out? I just kind of sat there going like, I don't even know what's going on anymore because they're just doing all these tours, all of this side stuff. And yeah, like, obviously I'm technically in the Through the Never movie. And, I got the soundtrack for that, but I'm like, when's a new album coming? When's a new album coming? Cool, you're doing this side stuff, but new album when? So it's not until I get here's how I vividly remember this, Mike. I get back from Heavy Montreal. I want to say that Monday or Tuesday at work on August 18th, my phone immediately blows up when I go for break. Like, Nick, look at this. And I'm like, new Metallica. What? As soon as I see it, okay, Hardwired, let's go. Let's hear as this ends. I whip out my earbuds at work. I'm just sitting there and I'm going, this is what I waited 8 years for. Come on, new record, new record, new record.
And then it came. Can we talk about the rollout of this album? How they had music videos for like every single track. And the way they rolled it out, it was like one video per day for like, I think 2 weeks.
Yeah, that was my thing. For me, I wanted to go into this record not hearing anything aside from like the first 3 or 4 songs that I had heard. So like I only heard Hardwired, Atlas Rise, Moth into Flame, and I think even Dream No More had come out, but it didn't have a video yet. So I just went, I'm not going to hear any leaks. I'm not going to torrent it. I'm going to buy the album day one. I'm going to take it home and I'm going to listen to it all day. I did exactly that. And that was the perfect way to hear it for the first time.
Nice.
Yeah. And I have so many good memories, especially like seeing them live, seeing them live 3 times on that run and everything. I'm even in the Edmonton footage for 2 seconds. James Hetfield calls me a borderline stalker for 2 seconds. Super proud of myself for that. Thanks, James. But no, like the lead up to Hardwired, the amount of memories I have of seeing them live from that time period, those are honestly some of the best of my life. So I have a lot of nostalgia for Hardwired and Death Magnetic. I personally do think I can't really pick between the two, though, because like I like the complexity of Death Magnetic, but I like the length of the songs in Hardwired. And like obviously Hardwired has Spit Out the Bone, has the title track, has Moth into Flame. Like those are actively in my Metallica gym playlist all the time.
Honestly, I think the tiebreaker is the production, and that goes to Hardwired. But Death Magnetic has like individually some of my favorite like modern Metallica songs.
No, absolutely agreed. My entire thing, though, in terms of like these recent 2 releases, S&M 2 and 72 Seasons, my entire issue a lot with S&M 2, especially just looking back, I feel like more thrashier songs should have been added to it to kind of keep the energy much higher. I feel like they picked way too many mid-tempo songs.
I would agree with that because, for one, we already kind of tread that territory in the first S&M. I would have preferred if 2 was, I guess, more representative of Death Magnetic and Hardwired, and I guess to some extent Saint Anger, which one of the singles from S&M 2 was All Within My Hands.
Yeah, that's the first time that the acoustic version's been floating around on the internet since 2007 even. So it's not like it was a brand new thing exactly. It's just it never had an official release. So like that was wicked that was included. But for me, I just wish more stuff like Spit Out the Bone or Battery had been included, like rather than just go for like the obvious, like Wherever I May Roams, One, Master of Puppets, Nothing Else Matters, Enter Sandman, For Whom the Bell. Like it has a lot of the obvious stuff on there. I do wish, like, you know, you have Halo on Fire on there, which is cool, I guess, but at the same time, again, how cool would it have been had they picked like All Nightmare Long to be kind of like the Wolf and Man of this? I just think that this set list should have been much better than what it was.
Man, All Nightmare Long with that orchestration would have been amazing.
Hey, it would have been way cooler than them messing around with a symphony for like 9 minutes and, you know, them not doing very much with it.
Yeah.
But for me, I do think 72 Seasons is better than S&M 2, but I stand by a lot of what I said when me and Kiona were talking about it. I do think that this album is better when you trim it down to just 8 songs.
I haven't gone back and listened to the full thing since our review, but I like the singles a lot. Like, oddly enough, I come back to those more often because they honestly picked really good ones.
For me, if you cut this album to just 8 songs, you cut out Sleepwalk My Life Away, you cut You Must Burn, you cut Crown of Barbed Wire, yes, even cut out If Darkness Had a Sun, you have a solid 8 songs that conclude on a good 1-2 punch again with Too Far Gone, Room of Mirrors, and Inamorata. I think those are the 3 best songs on the album.
Yeah, those ones are really good.
Yeah, especially, again, that twin solo section of Room of Mirrors is what I wanted out of this album the most. Where was this?
One last question as we're kind of winding this down. How much longer do you think Metallica has left in them?
Honestly, they're in their legacy years. It is kind of weird to go back and watch Some Kind of Monster with the knowledge we have of their history 20 years after the fact.
I was thinking about that.
I'm just kind of going, I think maybe they'll do one more album in a few years and then maybe they'll be done. I do like that they are doing these weekend shows instead rather than just do a whole, you know, bunch of touring, just random days throughout the week. No, just spend a weekend in a city, do 20 dates across 2 years, have our fun in North America and Europe, and then eventually get to some other countries. But I do see them maybe scaling back touring and doing more of these kinds of gigs.
I think that's a good idea for them. There are bands, and we talked about one already, that have overstayed their welcome. I don't think Metallica is going to be like the thrash equivalent of the Rolling Stones, but I think maybe one more record to just like put their final statement out in the world, that seems like the right thing for them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they're all going to have their own hobbies, like already established with Some Kind of Monster, Hetfield being into hunting and cars, you know, Lars being into art and hanging out with celebrities, Kirk being into, you know, classic Hammer and, you know, old school 1930s horror movies. You know, Rob's probably going to always be the most musically active member of the band, to be honest. But like even Jason, like that's kind of why I'm a little bit annoyed at the Echo Brain thing in hindsight, because it never really materialized into anything.
Yeah, that's true. Although they do mention it in the documentary that he joined up with Voivod, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, the Voivod albums he's on, and Metal Machine, heavy metal music. Metal Machine music's the Lou Reed album. We're not going there with Lou Reed. Never. Nope. But no, heavy metal music is worth checking out from Newstead. But yeah, that's just kind of my thing. I don't know how much we're going to see more of Metallica in the next few years, if we're going to even get another new album in, like, let's say by 2027, maybe. It terrifies me to say that we're getting close to the year 2027 already.
Even if 72 seasons, let's just say they decide, you know what, this is where we can, bookend our career. That is still like a pretty solid run, all things considered.
Yeah. And to be honest, just to kind of bring things full circle, we really do have Saint Anger and Some Kind of Monster to thank for that, because I do think the world would be a worse off place without Metallica in it.
Agreed. And I wasn't sure when I was going to bring this up in the podcast, but Facebook doesn't really specify the exact day, but July is the 10-year anniversary of our friendship. I remember we met in what was formerly known as the Schmoville Facebook group, ran by Christian Harloff and Mark Ellis. And I was just so excited to talk to another metalhead when I felt kind of alone in that circle. And then Metallica is just one of the things that naturally came up. And yeah, 10 years later, we're still going strong.
Exactly. And I don't even really know how to conclude this, even just being like, hey, here's how you can pick up Metallica's catalog. All of their albums get active represses on vinyl and CD and everything. And you know what? I'm just going to tell people, go see Metallica live and make friends at those gigs. Go make friends with a Metallica fan, because guaranteed you will be friends for life with the most laid back and relaxed group of people on the planet. Yeah, you can get into heated discussions over which album's your favorite. Why do you prefer Master of Puppets over Ride the Lightning, or vice versa? Or why Injustice for All is your favorite? Or what was up with Saint Anger? Like, is it a good album or is it a bad album? Like, just, Metallica brings a lot of great into my universe, and I can't say enough great things about them. So there's a reason my Instagram, I always do Metallica Mondays, and lately I've been trying to give Mike as much shine on there as I can, like just with podcasts like this and, just the albums I tend to show off.
Overall, Metallica ruled the world at one point, and they still rule in this household.
Oh, for me, they've always ruled the world, and they will continue.
Hell yeah.
Like, that is the note we should leave it on.
So as we wrap this up, Nick, where can everyone find you online?
Super Saiyan Death Metal God on Instagram and on Twitch. I might stream again. I'm just kind of considering my options with it, really, but mainly just check my Instagram. I mainly post album covers, movies I'm watching, video games I'm playing, albums on vinyl I have. Like I said, I do Metallica Mondays on it, where I show off stuff from my collection. So like, concert stubs, Funko Pops, the vinyl, the CD, occasionally the tapes that I have, if I have them. So go shoot me a follow and some binge likes. That'll be awesome.
And you guys can find me on various social media sites at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/Coach K42. And you can follow Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and that place at Ren Pop Culture. You can also find us on YouTube, on Podchaser. Consider supporting our Patreon at patreon.com/Renegade Pop Culture. Listen to all of our podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. You can escape, so do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Jukebox. We will catch you guys later. Nick?
I didn't make an entire joke about this the entire episode, so I practiced my James Hetfield. Yeah, so here it is. Yeah.